So, who are the students filling America's classrooms today? It seems like a simple question, but the answer, well, it's this incredibly rich and complex story of migration, struggle, and resilience. And that's exactly what we're going to dig into right now.
All right, here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the big picture, the major changes in our classrooms. Then, we're going to dive into the unique stories of a few different student groups, unpack the history of their struggles, and finally, we'll wrap it all up by talking about why this matters so much right now. Okay, so to really get a handle on who our students are, you first have to appreciate just how much our schools have been reshaped by these huge demographic shifts.
Get this: over 50 million Hispanic people now live in the United States. That makes them the largest minority group in the country, and their presence is having this massive and growing impact on our schools.
And wow, this chart, it just lays it all out. Look at that growth. We're going from under 10 million in 1970 to almost 60 million just a few years ago. This isn't just a small uptick. We're talking about a fundamental transformation of the American landscape. But who are the people behind that huge number? The label Hispanic or Latino isn't one single story. It's more like a whole library of different histories, different cultures, and really different educational journeys. This population includes families who were living in the Southwest way before it was even part of the United States. People who, as the saying goes, didn't cross the border crossed them. But it also includes recent immigrants and refugees from dozens of countries, each with their own unique story. And their experience in school has been shaped by some really deep-seated prejudice. Listen to this quote from a Texas school superintendent. It's shocking, but it reveals a painful truth. For a long, long time, the education for many Mexican Americans was actually designed to limit them, to create a permanent class of cheap labor. And that's the key thing, right? This community is not a monolith. You've got Mexican Americans with these deep historic roots. You have Puerto Ricans who've been U.S. citizens for over 100 years. And you have different waves of Cuban immigrants, including a really highly educated group that came after 1959. Each one has a totally distinct path in the U.S. school system. And you see a very similar thing when you look at the term Asian American. It's another one of these huge umbrella terms that covers an incredible spectrum of cultures and histories. I mean, think about it. We're talking about more than 38 million people whose roots trace back to a massive part of the globe. It's just impossible to use a single label or a single stereotype to capture all that diversity. But it happens all the time. And even though many of these communities had deep roots in America, their citizenship was often just ignored in the face of fear and prejudice. During World War II, it led to one of the most shameful chapters in U.S. history, the forced internment of over 110,000 Japanese Americans. And get this, most of them were U.S. citizens. So when you look at their educational journeys, you see these huge contradictions. You've got periods of exclusion, like the laws that targeted early Chinese immigrants, periods of success that were followed by just unimaginable trauma, like with Japanese Americans. And then you have more recent arrivals, like refugees who fled war in Southeast Asia after 1975, and they bring totally different experiences and needs into the classroom. Okay, now let's talk about another group of students who are so often misunderstood: Arab Americans. Yeah, this slide is fascinating because it just shatters that myth of a single Arab identity. This isn't one place. We see huge populations from Lebanon, Egypt, Iraq, and a ton of other nations. So it's absolutely crucial for educators to get this. Most Arab Americans are born right here in the U.S. They trace their family histories to over 22 different countries, and they practice different religions, including a large Christian population. But since 9/11, these students have often faced intense prejudice in the very schools that are supposed to be a safe place for them. Right. So here's the thing. None of these stories happened in a vacuum. To really, truly understand them, we have to look at the foundational struggles for educational equality that kind of set the stage for everyone else. And we have to start with the very first students on this land, Native Americans. Their experience with American education wasn't about empowerment. It was about forced assimilation. The explicit goal of federal boarding schools was to systematically erase their languages, their customs, their identities, to, and this is a quote, kill their culture through education. And at the same time, you have this incredible century-long legal battle fought by Black Americans, a fight that would end up defining the struggle for educational rights for everyone. It started with the injustice of separate but equal, which was made law by Plessy v. Ferguson. It saw this huge victory with Brown v. Board of Education, which finally said segregation was unconstitutional. And it finally got some real power behind it with the Civil Rights Act.
I mean, look at this. This contrast says it all, doesn't it? The journey from those legally segregated classrooms to the multicultural classrooms we see today is a testament to that fight. But the echoes of that history, of unequal funding, of prejudice, of just fighting for a place to belong, those are still being felt by students today.
Okay, so we've seen all these different journeys. Let's bring it back to our big question. Why does any of this history matter today?
Here's the takeaway. This is the whole point. When we ask who are our students, the answer isn't a statistic. The answer is in these distinct legacies. Our students literally carry these histories, these challenges, and these incredible stories of resilience with them into the classroom every single day.
Understanding who our students really are, that's the first, most important step. And it leaves us with a critical question for the future. Knowing all this, how do we best prepare ourselves and our teachers to educate the wonderfully diverse students who are sitting in our classrooms right now?